doesn't heal the pain, but I pulled the trigger anyway. I should have known that love and desperation were a dangerous mix. Maybe if I had known, I wouldn't be here now, sitting in this cold, cramped cell, talking to you, feeling the weight of my regrets pressing down on my chest. David and I had been together for 5 years. He was my first boyfriend, my first everything. We met in my first year of university, and from that moment, I was his. He swept me off my feet with his confidence, his charm, and the way he made me feel like the most important person in the world. Ever since then, we had been inseparable. Back then, I didn't care how he made his money. All I knew was that he had it, and with him, life was sweet. David was already deep into Yahoo internet fraud, but to me, it didn't matter. He was one of the lucky ones, making money effortlessly. He had the latest cars, the best clothes, and every weekend, we stayed in the most expensive hotels in Lagos. I thought I had found my perfect man. Life felt like a dream, and I was his queen. But over time, I began to see something in him I couldn't ignore: his desperation. He wanted more money, not just a little, but more than he could ever earn through honest work. His obsession with wealth started to consume him, and it became clear that nothing, no matter the cost, would stand in his way. But dreams don't last forever. For 6 months, his luck ran dry. No clients were paying, no deals were clicking. The money that once came so easily was slipping through his fingers like water. At first, he stayed hopeful, but frustration soon turned him into someone I barely recognized. "Babe, things are bad," he told me one evening, his voice heavy with stress. I don't know what else to do. I was in my final year at university, juggling school and our relationship. I wanted to comfort him, to promise that things would improve, but deep down I was terrified. Our fast life was catching up with us. Then I found out I was pregnant. I had missed my period for 2 months but dismissed it as stress from school and his situation. When the test came back positive, my heart sank. This wasn't part of the plan. When I told him, he fell silent for a long time before sighing and rubbing his forehead. "We can't keep it," he finally said. "Not now. Things are too hard already." I nodded. I had already considered abortion. Neither of us was ready for a child, and bringing one into a life of struggle didn't make sense. But money for an abortion was still out of reach. He was trying to gather funds, and I was left waiting. That's when everything changed. One evening, he came home with an unusual intensity about him. He sat me down, held my hands, and looked me in the eyes.
"Babe, I went to see someone, a spiritualist."
A chill ran down my spine. I'd heard the rumors at school about men dabbling in rituals for money, Yahoo Plus. Some used charms or bathed in rivers at midnight, and others, even sacrificed. He continued.
"He said if I want to be rich, like really rich, I need to sacrifice a child before it's born."
I pulled my hands away in shock. "What are you saying?" He swallowed hard. "Babe, listen, you're already pregnant, and you were going to abort it anyway. Why not use it for something?" My heart pounded. "David, do you hear yourself? You want to use our unborn child for a ritual?" Desperation colored his eyes.
"Think about it. What future are we giving this child? Do you want our baby to suffer? This way, we can have everything we ever wanted. We'll never have to struggle again."
I wanted to run, to end it all right then, but his words lingered, and in a moment of weakness, I agreed. I had no idea that decision would ruin my life forever. The night after our agreement, I barely slept. My mind raced with doubt, trying to convince me that this was just another way to end the pregnancy. But as the hours passed, the weight of what we'd decided became all too real. A week later, he told me everything was set. The spiritualist said it has to be done when the pregnancy is 3 months old, he explained, placing a small bottle on the table. The dark, thick liquid inside looked like palm oil mixed with something else, and my stomach twisted in protest. "What will happen after I drink it?" I asked. He hesitated before answering. "It will remove the pregnancy, and the sacrifice will be complete." At that moment, I realized this wasn't just about ending a pregnancy, it was offering it up. "Babe, you don't have to be scared," he said softly, squeezing my hand. "This is for us, for our future." I nodded slowly, but deep down, something felt irrevocably wrong. The next morning, with trembling hands and a heart full of dread, I drank the mixture. At first, everything felt perfect. He transformed, he became gentle, caring, and ever present. He showered me with gifts, took me out on lavish dates, and made me feel like a queen. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," he whispered one night, holding me close. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that our desperate choice was for love. And for a while, the spiritualist's promise seemed to come true. His money returned, even multiplied. Clients began paying again, and suddenly, we could afford things we never imagined: new clothes, expensive dates, even a car. He even talked about moving to a bigger apartment. It all felt like a dream, but after 3 months, I noticed something was wrong. I hadn't seen my period. At first, I assumed it was just my body readjusting after the abortion. But as the 4th and 5th months passed with no sign, worry set in. One evening, while he was in the shower, I unwrapped a pregnancy test with shaking hands. When it came back negative, a momentary relief washed over me. Perhaps my body just needed more time. By the 7th month, however, I knew something was terribly wrong. My breasts no longer ached with tenderness. My stomach, which had shown a hint of life before, was completely flat. No matter what I did, my period never returned. One night, I finally confronted him. "I haven't seen my period since the abortion," I whispered. He froze. "Since when?" "Since the abortion," I repeated, my voice barely audible. His face darkened. "Maybe it's just stress. Maybe you should rest." I knew he was lying. I saw it in the way his eyes shifted and his gaze averted. And then, the smell started. At first, it was faint, something only I seemed to notice. A slight, unpleasant odor that clung to me no matter how many times I bathed. I scrubbed my skin raw, used the strongest soaps, sprayed the most expensive perfumes, but nothing worked. The smell only got worse. Soon, people started noticing. On the bus, I saw how strangers shifted away from me. In crowded places, I caught people wrinkling their noses, glancing around as if trying to find the source of the awful stench. Even my boyfriend, who once couldn't keep his hands off me, had started keeping his distance. "What's wrong with you?" he asked one evening. His tone was sharp, but I could hear the concern beneath it. I forced a smile. "Nothing. I'm just tired." It was a lie. I wasn't just tired, I was terrified. And then, I started noticing flies buzzing around me. At first, I assumed it was a one-time oddity, a few flies drawn in by coincidence. But they persisted, and soon the buzzing became a constant, unwelcome companion. I remember one afternoon, standing by a stall at the market buying vegetables, when a few flies hovered around me. I swatted them away, but they wouldn't leave. Traders stole quick glances at me, their expressions shifting between curiosity and disgust. As I moved to another stall, a swarm of flies clustered around my feet. Their buzzing grew louder with every step I took, following me like a shadow. Later that day, as I walked home under a grey, heavy sky, they circled my head relentlessly, as if trying to peel away the layers of my disguise. At home, even the sanctuary of my shower was no refuge. I noticed them gathering by the drain, as if drawn to me. No matter where I went, they followed. And that was when I knew something was terribly wrong. Still, I waited. I was too scared to go to the hospital. What if they told me something I didn't want to hear? What if this was something else? Then the pain began. A sharp, stabbing agony deep within me, like something was dying inside. And one night, I woke up to damp sheets. The foul smell was stronger than ever. I turned on the light, and what I saw made my stomach turn. The sheets beneath me were stained, not with blood, but with something darker, something deeply wrong. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That same evening, as the pain became unbearable, I rushed to the hospital, driven by desperate hope for some explanation. My palms were sweaty as I sat across from the doctor, my heart pounding in my chest. Sitting across from Dr. Hassan, my heart pounded as he asked, "Miss Juliet, have you ever had an abortion before?" I could only swallow hard, my hands trembling. Why do you ask?" He sighed, removed his glasses, and continued,
"The results show that you have a severe infection in your uterus. It's from an incomplete abortion. Some tissue was left behind and has begun to decay. That's causing the smell, the discomfort, and the flies."
My stomach dropped. So, what does that mean? What can be done?
The infection is severe, and parts of your uterus have begun to die. We need to perform surgery immediately to remove the affected tissue before it spreads.
Surgery. The word sent a cold wave through me. Will I be okay after the surgery? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We'll do our best," he replied, though his tone left little room for hope. That night, I hesitantly called David. "Babe, I went to the hospital," I said. "Finally." "What did they say?" he replied. "It's an infection from the abortion. They said I need surgery before it gets worse." There was silence on the other end. "How much?" he finally asked. I gave him the details. "I'll send it. Just get better, okay?" Tears filled my eyes. "Thank you, David." His voice came back lightly. "What are boyfriends for?" For a moment, I clung to the hope that everything would be fine. But after the surgery, the truth was undeniable. I awoke to the sound of soft beeping and a dull ache in my lower abdomen. David was there, his hand warm and steady as he tried to offer comfort. Yet when the doctor arrived, his smile was gone. "The surgery went well, but we need to discuss the results," he said. My heart sank as he explained, "The infection had spread too far. We had no choice but to remove your uterus to save your life. I'm sorry, Juliet, but you won't be able to have children." The air grew heavy. I turned to David for reassurance, but his grip had loosened, and his expression was masked with regret. "David," I whispered. He swallowed hard. "At least you're okay. That's what matters." I wanted to believe him, but then he added, I wish you had gone to the hospital sooner." His tone wasn't harsh, but those words stung like a slap. Guilt and grief crashed over me. Had I brought this upon myself? Over the next few days, I noticed the distance growing between us. He stayed with me for a while, but I felt his touch becoming lighter, his words forced. Then, 2 weeks after I was discharged, he came to my apartment with a small envelope. Setting it on the table, he avoided looking at me. "I know this is a lot," he started. "I just want to support you. Use this money to start something for yourself." "Start something?" I repeated in a barely audible voice. He sighed. "After everything, maybe we should take some time apart." I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. "Take time apart? David, just say what you really mean." His silence told me everything. "So, because I can't have a child, you're leaving?" "It's not like that." He finally looked at me, guilt swimming in his eyes. "You know I wanted a family. You know how important that is to me." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "And what about me, Bayo? You think I didn't want a family too? Do you think I planned this?" He sighed again, like he was already exhausted from the conversation. "I just don't want to bring children into this world through another woman. I want my own kids, with my wife." The word wife stung more than anything else. "So I'm not even a possibility anymore?" He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I didn't want his pity. "I'm sorry, Juliet, I really am, but I think it's best if we move on." And just like that, he was gone. I sat there for a long time, staring at the envelope containing the check. At first, I didn't cry. I was too numb to feel anything. But soon, the tears came, and I cried like I'd never cried before. My chest ached, my heart shattered. I felt like my world had crumbled. All the sacrifices, all the love I had given, meant nothing in the end. I was left there, alone, with nothing but the pain. Maybe this is my punishment. If I had gone to a proper hospital, maybe I wouldn't have lost everything. Who would want me now, knowing I can't bear children? How would I even explain why? But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't just an abortion. It was a ritual, a desperate act disguised as sacrifice. After David left me, I sought answers from a spiritualist, someone who claimed to see the truth behind betrayals. He said it was because of that ritual I did, that the price I paid for what I wanted was my own womb. He said I had half given my child, and that kind of sacrifice is never free. Even after I aborted the pregnancy, the spiritual consequences were already in motion. According to him, from the moment I did that ritual, I had exchanged something spiritual for something physical. And the price? I would never be able to have a child again. And David knew. I just stared at him in shock. So he knew. All this while, he knew and said nothing. He let me suffer, let me blame myself, let me think it was stress or some medical issue. Even having the audacity to say, maybe if you had gone to a proper hospital, this wouldn't have happened. The same man I trusted, the one who took me there, he knew what I was going to lose, and he kept quiet. Just because of what he stood to gain. I always knew he was selfish, but not like this. Not enough to destroy my life just to get what he wanted. I tried to move on. I told myself it was in the past, that maybe I could still find happiness somehow. But healing felt impossible when every breath reminded me of what I had lost. And then, the invitation came. A small white envelope. No name, no call, just a cold, printed card slid under my door. David was getting married, to someone else. I stared at the card for minutes, like my eyes were lying to me. My hands started shaking. I read it again and again. The name of the bride, the date, the venue. It was real. That was when everything snapped. David was a user, a smooth-talking manipulator who knew exactly what to say and when to say it. He wasn't just selfish, he was calculated, cold. The kind of man who would watch you sink while pretending to throw you a rope. He took everything from me, my body, my trust, my future, and gave me nothing in return but sweet words, empty promises, and maybe some money here and there. Was that the price he thought he had paid for my womb? For everything I gave up? Was that check he gave me his idea of payment? Was that supposed to make up for the life I lost? He was the type to smile in your face while planning your downfall behind your back. And the worst part? I loved him. I loved him so much that I didn't see it. Or maybe I just refused to see it. He was never mine. I was just a means to an end for him. A convenience. A sacrifice. And her, she got the happy ending I was supposed to have. She got the life I bled for. The future I had pictured every night before sleep. I sat on the floor with that card in my hand, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I just sat there, numb, angry, empty, and that's when I knew. I couldn't let it go. On the day of the wedding, anger swept over me like a raging storm. After all I sacrificed, after all I lost, he still walked away as if I were nothing. And now, he stood at the altar, dressed in a suit and smiling beside his perfect bride, as if my pain had never existed. I entered that church with one single thought: he's going to pay. The gun trembled in my hands as I aimed at him, standing at the altar, smiling at his bride. He had promised me forever. Now, he was giving it to someone else. For one split second, I hesitated. Memories of shared laughter and whispered promises flashed before my eyes. Was he worth all this? Then I recalled the endless nights of silent tears and his final words: I can't be with you anymore. You can't give me what I need. That was enough. The rage drowned every other thought. It wasn't about love anymore, it was about how easily he discarded me. And then, I pulled the trigger. David fell, his wedding suit marred by blood. He looked at me, truly looked, for the first time since he left, and in that moment, I felt nothing. Not anger, not regret, just an aching emptiness.